Hey there, everyone. I was going to make a video on scalable NPCs, but that really only applies to game masters and only if they want to create scalable NPCs. So I'll do that one later. What I figured I'd do instead is a video on the guts of Against the Dark Master. Now, it's a lot like my other systems because I build them all the same way. They're based on items. So I'm just going to go through the item types and show you how they work, because I mean part of the ease, not the ease of play, but the flexibility is based on the items that you can create yourself for various things. And I'll discuss those as we get to them. So what I'm going to do is going to create a temporary actor who doesn't have anything on him at all. Absolutely empty. No items. So, and then I'll go to the items tab and I'm just going to create some items starting with the ones at the top. Container. Okay. And I guess I'll just call it. Yeah. I'll just call it that. Okay. The purpose of a container is to hold other items that are related. So, because in combat, for example, and let me show you some containers. VsD items, weapons. Most of the weapons are containers, and I will show you why. Let's take the battle axe, for example. So the icon doesn't really matter, it's just window dressing, but all of this stuff matters. Because the way I run attacks, they are attacks, they're not weapons. So in order to collect all of the things together that belong to one weapon, you use a container. So the container is called battle axe, which is everything to do with the weapon, and it contains 4 different kinds of attacks and 1 modifier. And if you know the rules, then you'll know exactly why it contains those things. So I will bring that one up again because I didn't drag it onto anything. And instead I'll just drag it onto the actor. So what the container does when you drop it, and you can see all of the bits and pieces and why they're there, because the battle axe attack has 2 forms. One is blades. I think if we open it up, I was sure that, anyway, those are the details for it, but these are the ones that the system cares about. I thought that either the blades or the blunt was modified. I guess I'm just going to, whoops, not do that. I'm going to open up Against the Dark Master. Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. And then go to Tales of Legend, no, Trails of Adventure, Equipment, Weapons, Description. Where's that table? There it is. Battle axe. Yeah, okay. So for a battle axe, you can either use the blunt skill or blades at -20. Right, so something to fix. So these, now how to do that? Okay, this way. So it should be blades -20. Blades -20. Obviously, if you have a better blunt skill than your blades at -20, then you probably wouldn't use your, no, you definitely wouldn't, so you just delete those 2. If, on the other hand, blades -20 was better than blunt, you'd probably just remove blunt, because there's no point in having them. But what we're going to do here is we're going to build a new fixed container. Now what this one is for, oops, let's edit it. It's a condition or status, basically that you're using it one-handed, and I think we'll have it reset after every roll. And it affects, it's -10, and it affects blades, battle axe, blunt battle axe if you're using it one-handed. So two-handed, you don't have the -10 penalty, and that came out of the description of the thing in the book. So why don't I scroll down, weapons, 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 hand and a half. Yeah, that's what its quality is hand and a half. But do we have battle axe? Meant to be used with one or both hands. Really, there's not much to be done there. So no, I won't bother adding it as a note. Right, so that's that could be a problem. So the reason I say that could be a problem is because what if you find yourselves in possession of a +10 battle axe, so you renamed it +10 battle axe, then this won't match and it won't apply the penalty to it. So I think I'm just going to change that, not to battle axe one-handed. Well, sure, battle axe one-handed, but it's just going to affect blades or blunt, because those you're not allowed to change. And that way, and if it's a condition that resets, then you're only going to set it when you're using your battle axe one-handed. Of course, that'll be a real pain in the butt if you are using it one-handed for a whole fight and it resets all the time. So you'd probably just want to uncheck it and let her go. I'll just leave it like that then. Okay, so it's a modifier, place battle axe one-handed, close it, and then I will copy that version onto there. And then I'll change this to battle axe. And then I will find that container. Ah, okay. Great. Why is that on the forge? It's in the system. Okay. Okay. So if I go to user data, systems, which one are we in? I'm in this one, but yeah, I guess I'll just leave it at that. No, I won't. I'll use this one. It's not tokens, it's icons. Macros, packs, templates. Weird. Okay. We'll close that and just use the one that it's got. And then we will close that. Paste that one in, select the file, and now it's set. Okay, so we've created a new one, and that is already on the sidebar over here. So I guess we're going to put that in with the house rules and the mods, because that one's now fixed. Now, here's an interesting thing about containers. Back to containers. If you delete the container, it deletes all the items that it dropped with it. And even if you delete a couple of them, if you then delete the container, it takes the rest of them away. But if, when you drop it, you clone one, and then delete the container, it'll leave the cloned one behind. Okay. The main reason for that is so that you can do things like drop weapons on, and then remove the weapon, and all of the things that are associated with the weapon, and take them all away at once. That's why I added that feature that was requested. You cannot open them or touch them because they're not complete items when they're inside the container, but they are a thing that has enough data from which you can create an item when it's dropped. So you could also take that and drop the individual bit onto here so that you could edit it and delete that one and then add that one back on. Or you could say, I've got the battle axe and really all I want is that, so I'm going to drop that on there. And you know, when you drop a single item onto an actor sheet, it always brings it up so that you can edit it. So then we take that one and take that one. That's another way of dropping it, but then you're not going to be able to pick it up afterwards because I can take that battle axe and drop it on there as well. But when I delete the battle axe, those other three items are still there. So that's the way containers work. And a little bit about some other stuff. Let's try the next kind of item. Rollable. What do we got? Okay, rollable is a superset of a bunch of things. Defenses, skills, and spells. Okay. And I think what we're going to do is open up an NPC should be fine. Why don't we bring her up again so that we can see what these things are. So skills and spells. See, they're all rollables. And those are all listed. Those are the things that are listed here. Skills and spells. Now, what are defenses? There's one. Do I have? I don't think I do. You can't select them. Interesting. Okay. Well, there are only two of them anyway. And that's our armor and body. Because they're not quite skills. Did I open that? There. Yeah. They're not quite skills. They're not treated the same way. They're a little bit strange. So that's why I do that. Now let's have a look at the rest and see if there are any more that are labeled check. Because I don't think there are going to be. Whoops, there's one. Locks and... No. Oh, right. Melee defensive bonus and missile defensive bonus. So, again, those are not quite the same thing as other skills. They're other information. So where can I find them? I wonder. Critical rolls? Save rolls? Oops. I guess I need to have her token selected. Where is she? That's skills. That's all of her skills. And where's the spells? That'll be spells over there, right? Yeah, that's all of her spells. And this one, failure rolls. So spell failure, magic resonance, fumbles. Good. Saves. Okay, toughness and willpower. For Pete's sakes. All the criticals. So there's no way to bring up the melee or missile defensive bonus. They're all incorporated in this section here. And if you've targeted somebody, like She's got stuff. We'll target her, and you bring up a weapon, an attack, then it'll show all of that information up here. And for setting your enemy defensive bonus before you take that swing, you figure out which one of these defenses should be applying to you. And before you roll, remember to look at what their armor type is, because that's important. And you click on that, and it will automatically set the defensive bonus without you having to fiddle around with it. And then you can roll, and then it'll bring up the chart, which is why you need to remember what armor type it was, because that's the column that you're going to pick your result from. So, youch! Well, okay. So, she did an open-ended roll. Rolled 179, but the weapon she was using had a maximum of 130. So, you go to 130, medium armor, and click on that result, assuming that all of this was correct. Yeah, the enemy defensive bonus is listed, her brawn, elven training, and so on. So then the hits can be dragged on, and you can proceed with the applying the damage of the attack and the doing the critical roll. So that's superficial. You set it to moderate, and then roll the critical. 64. And that brings that up. Then when you drag that onto the opponent, it creates a wound if applicable. And in this case, it's going to do 1 bleed, and they're stunned, so yeah, there will be a wound involved. Okay, so that's what rollables are. Yeah, you probably shouldn't need to create any of those. Most of the ones in the system are already created. Okay, let's try the next item. Traits. Okay, I think I've probably talked about traits a lot in this so far, but we'll create one just for the heck of it. All right, there are 7 kinds, because they're the bits and pieces of information that are spread out on the sheet. So revelations are grouped here underneath this section. Your passions are up here. I use it for distributing information as well as passions. So distributing information for NPCs and passions as well. The revelations, you can do the distribution of information down there too, or actually use them as milestones or revelations in accordance with the rules. Kin special trait. Those are all displayed here in the special abilities. I wonder if I shouldn't just rename that section so it makes more sense. Backgrounds, they show up here. Character traits, languages, obvious. The last one's not so obvious. Notes and equipment. This is where the experience ones show up. And these are the things that you'll find in the rulebook. There's a list of them, a list of things you might do to gain experience rewards, and you and your GM will sort out which ones are applicable. And then when you do one of these things during play, you check the box, and then at the end of play, you let him know which ones you succeeded at, and then he can assign experience points accordingly. So those are the traits themselves. Now, I've shown you in the other videos the mechanisms for using double tasking, multitasking other items, and that is simply by using the word language, lowercase, character, background, kin, passion, or revelation in this field for a different kind of item, and then they will be listed in the same location as the traits. So if you have a modifier for a particular background option, then you type background in there in the filtering group, and I think we have some. Oh, that's actually just a trait. Let's try one that is there. So you do this. You have this as a modifier, and it will behave like a modifier. But by typing background in there, it also behaves like a trait, a background trait, so that you can send the information from the notes to the chat. Okay, I've probably covered that one to death in the other videos as well, so I'll leave that one alone now. Moving on to the next kind of item. Okay, melee attacks and ranged attacks. We'll do them at the same time. So I can show you. So most of these are created, but there's no reason why you can't create your own. And when you look at one that's already been created, you'll see that it's more than just the information up here. So the offensive bonus is the reference to the skill, the combat skill, that applies for it. Yeah, that one should just be always ranged. Whereas this one could be any number of things. And you select from the appropriate attack table, the appropriate critical table. If there's a secondary critical involved, this is mostly for monsters. What the unmodified threshold for critical failure is. So if you roll that number or less on the D100, the unmodified roll, then it is a fumble. The open-ended range is... It's an old mechanism, but if there's nothing else overriding it, then this will be used to determine whether it explodes. The D100 roll explodes. But there's another mechanism in place which will extend the open-ended range for people with like the weird background. And it will override this setting. So if you have weird, then you don't need to go and change all of these. It will automatically overcorrect. I'm just going to show you where that one is, because yeah, this various items has a bunch of useful stuff in it. The open-ended change. So weird level 1 or minor level is 6, and weird major level I think is 8, the number that you'd put in. And you drag that onto your sheet, and then these won't matter anymore. They'll be overridden by the open-ended change value. Okay, then we get down to the maximum result. That's obviously important because the system will, if your result is higher than that, it will produce that message. Where do we see that? Max result possible, 130. Just like it will if you roll doubles on a spellcasting roll, it will tell you that you need to make a magic resonance roll. So those are set. The filtering group. This is, at the moment, it's more for styling. So if people are wanting to change the look of their the items on their sheet, then they can use a module called Custom CSS. And what this does is this will add whatever you type in here will be added to the code for the item that is stored on the sheet. So, okay, to demonstrate, because it's useful. So you can see it says melee attack. If I just change it to melee, actually, I'll change it to blades. And then I'm going to use the dev tools and the inspector, and then I'm going to look at, which one was it? Edged cut, so it's this one. This item here. Ah, damn. There we go. So you can see that this is the item. In fact, that's the oh no, that's not the whole item. That's the whole item there. But what this is doing is that section there, blades, is in there. Now what I'm going to do is drag that off to the side. I'm going to change it to Woogie, something an old IT instructor of mine encouraged me to use because it's not likely to be encountered anywhere else. And there, now that section is changed to that, which means that with your custom CSS, knowing how this thing is built, you can grab onto that and give it a different background color, maybe a border, do all kinds of interesting things to it. Anyway, that's what that's for. In addition to being used to sort traits. So, a little bit extra helpful. Now, this stuff down here is really for reference. It's pretty much taken straight out of the stat block in the book, and is good for reference. So, when you are on the combat tab and you want to know whether you've got a long, a short, or a medium weapon, just hover over it, and those notes will be displayed, so you can tell, oh, it's short, or hand, etc. Magical longbow, length doesn't matter. Okay, but it's got load 1, so that's important when you're running your character. All right, that's attacks. Let's go on to the next item type. Defense. Okay, now these are the item types as defined by the system, not by the game. The difference is slight. And you can see it's spelt correctly. Sorry, had to do that. Okay, so this is a type of roll that can be made either standard or open-ended. A standard, this is for criticals and fumbles. So you'll find if we look for, on all items, we look for defenses. How are we going to find them? Or their saves and specials, I bet. Yeah. So, they're all defenses. Your critical rolls are standard, I think. Yep. And your fumbles will be open-ended, I bet. No, that's standard. So which ones? Toughness saving roll. That's open-ended. Okay. So, it includes all of those things, your defenses. So it's unlikely that you're going to need to make any more of them. They're already all included in the system. And if they aren't on your sheet, then they definitely are in here. So if you can't find it on the sheet for some reason, then that's interesting. A fear saving roll. That is not listed. Huh. Reaction rolls, not listed. That's neat. Oh, they're generally by NPCs to you, not you to them. Your reactions to them are determined by you. Fear save. Anyway, now you know where they are, if you need them. That's defenses. Motoring along here. Pools. Okay, everybody knows what these are all about, but I'll give some explanation. So, these extend the standard behavior of resources. So those are both defined by pools. One of which is the magic points, and the other one is the hit points, as you can see. So if I open up the resources, we can see that she only has two pools. Now the main difference between standard Foundry resources and my pools is that it also has a minimum value. And it uses abbreviation for its reference. So if you want to refer to hit points, for example, then you use .hp to refer to it in a reference like this. Now, hit points is a particular one in that the maximum value is determined by a formula, which is equal to the body skill plus your fortitude modifier plus your kinvok attribute value. Now, I've described in a number of videos why you needed to have body and kinvok being modified side by side. This will take the... Anyway, the body will affect the body skill here if you modify body, but it doesn't affect hit points. So, well, it affects it only in a small way. You need to modify both the body and the kinvok in order for them to create the proper number of hit points. And then there's the actual current value, and then there's the minimum value, which I think that's a house rule. I think it's supposed to be minus 100 or something like that for the standard rules. But of course, if any NPC is brought to 0, then it's toast as well. I go plus or minus the maximum. Magic points is just a standard little pool where you've hard-coded the maximum value and the current value, and the minimum is 0. I can't think of anything. You can use the value of a pool as a reference. Now, where that comes in handy, any of you D&D players who have used Power Strike or something like that, well, is that really... Basically, if you want the current value of a pool to affect something else, well, then you'll point a modifier at this to pick up the current value, and then apply that to whatever target you're looking for. And it could be something like I used to use pools for parrying and enemy defensive bonus, but then ran into problems where the pool maximum wasn't big enough and they wanted to parry or had an enemy defensive bonus that was larger than the pool value, or the pool value's maximum got set to 0 and then everybody got confused, because that's what will happen. I'm not going to do it to that one. I will do it to this one. If I set that pool's maximum value to 3, then the current value can't be bigger than the maximum value, so it resets. So, if your maximum value is at 0, your current value can never be higher than 0, so that becomes awkward. And that happened a fair amount by accident. Alright, so that's pools. Modifiers and variables. I'm going to do them last. Hit location isn't... Oh, hang on. It is a thing. But it isn't that. Like I said, difference between the game and the system. So, a hit location is actually what we use to deal with wounds and define the bleeding per round. Now let me quickly demonstrate. This is a wound. We're going to drop it onto her. So, simple one, minor forearm cut, plus 4 damage, that's the way they work. Yeah. The bleeding per round, you can see, has been adjusted. If I change that to 4, or bleeding per round changes. If I set that at 20, I bet you 20 is the wrong way to go. Yeah, I have a feeling. Yeah, see, that just added 20 to all of the skill rolls. So it's got to be a minus 20. There you go. So now they have an action penalty of minus 20. Injury severity would, in that case, be minor. And then it's got some mechanisms for you to treat. If it's not yet been treated, so be it. And then whatever the treatment roll was, you can record it. If you end up, unfortunately, with a lingering wound, then you can check that. And for a minor wound, I believe it's 3 days to heal it. I don't remember the other ones. So you can track the progress of the healing of that wound. So that's part of the system. Now let's go back to the Combat tab and get rid of that one. Okay, that's the way wounds work. Well, we know how primary attributes work, so we won't really worry about that. No, I'm not going to create one. I'll create a piece of equipment. I'll create a boat. Okay. Well, what I'll do is I'll go fetch a boat rather than create one. Goods and equipment. Boat. There we go. So, make that one go away. Yeah, this is the description is the big bit. So what I'll do is I will close that, and I'm simply going to drag that onto her character sheet. And then I'm going to drag, interesting, clothes extravagant. There we go. Drag those two on, and that'll be that's the way they look. So, if there were notes, let's say just notes with lace. And that shows up in the extra details. I'm probably going to be changing this sometime soon because it's a bit awkward, but that's the way it works for now. Next. And last, modifiers and variables. These are the two most commonly used and most complex things. So rather than, screw it, I'll create them. But I'll create the variable first. Okay. Interesting. Oh, I forgot to name it, that's why. So, reasons for using variables. What you're doing is you're storing a choice. In every case, unless you start that name with ranks, colon. If you start it with that, then it knows, this is going to be a list of rank, skill ranks, or spell ranks, that I'm going to apply to advancement. So these things all start with the word ranks. Okay? I don't think this one does. Nope, doesn't. So that one's, again, specific. So if it isn't one of those, then it could be something like, so it's a choice. And it allows you to choose one value. Now there are a number of them that are already in place, and we're going to have a look at them. The attack level. The attack level for a something you're going to make a saving roll on. Yeah, this one's a bit complicated because the base value, and you can look it up in the table in the book, is 55, and then goes on up to level 21 and so on. Critical severities: light, moderate, grievous, lethal, or superficial. Lots of others. The location for a magic resonance roll. So these are all the tables from which you can choose, and you need to remember to make a neutral value because that's where you want to reset them to. So did I really need to create this? I suppose I didn't, but I just need to show you something because it's something that everybody, including me, messes up on. Okay. I added that recently, so you can hit plus. Before you couldn't. So you want 0 for no mod, and then we will duplicate it a number of times just to save us some time, and we'll say +1, +2, +4, just for the heck of it. And we'll call it minor, major, critical. Or it could be a choice between two things. For example, you could put your one-handed or two-handed as a modifier here, and it would simply select whether you're using the weapon one-handed or two-handed. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I can do that. So there would never be no, well, yes, there is no mod. Two-handed with a D. One-handed. So this is a teeny bit more complicated, but it's going to demonstrate the example that I was looking for, and it's not going to be that. It's going to be -10 if you're using it one-handed, and it's going to be hand and a half. Now, is it going to reset after every roll? Sure. Actually, no. No, you'll set it to whatever you're going to set it to, and that's where it'll stay. Good enough. So I'm going to leave that one off to the side. It should be down there somewhere, hand and half. And then we will create a modifier to go with it. No. Shall we do hand and half? Not a container, a modifier. That'll do. So this is going to take the value of this and always apply it. So it's either going to be 0 or -10. So it's always on. And what it's going to do, and here's the thing you need to remember, always do it down here. So I could remove that and say at hand underscore and half, because that's the slugified name or value of that name, and it's going to apply to attacks. It's going to apply to all attacks. Is it skills and attacks, or is it just attacks? I think it was just attacks. And we will make it blades. Actually, is it going to be all attacks? No, because it's not going to include spell attacks. So if you're using a weapon one-handed and casting a spell with the other, you don't want this thing to apply -10 to your spell attack by accident. So, blades, blunt, brawl, and it won't be ranged either. Pole arms. Blade, blunt, brawl, pole arms. That's it. So those attacks. So what we could do is create a new one of these and say not applicable. Yeah. Because two-handed's never going to show up because it's got a 0. We'll leave it the way it is for now. Okay. Good to go. Now we just need to drag them onto the character to show how they work. All right. Okay. It should have shown up. Oh, of course it won't. All right. It will show up when you do this. So, and the default will be two-handed, but you can change it to one-handed, and you'll see I said you'll see that it should have changed that. I bet I got the modifier wrong. Let's see what it did. Hand and a half, one-handed. Okay. So it did apply itself to the roll, but it didn't show up in the other thing. So I think I need to change it to the modifier to affect the skills as well. So I need the modifiers. Where are you? Hand and half. So we'll duplicate it and say skill. And then when we use it, yeah. Oh, it had. Okay, that's what it had done. It had chosen one-handed and stuck there, so we had to unstick it. So it is actually applying, even without the added crap. So let's see if I change that to two-handed. Yeah. Okay. See, all of these change. So you need to be careful about how you're using it if you're going to use it that way. Not a problem though. So one-handed, then we roll it, and we can see that it's been applied. So if we didn't want it to be permanent, and we wanted to be able to see it, there you are, then it shows up. All right. But for the most part, if you have a modifier connected to a variable, then that modifier is going to be permanently on, because you're not worried about that one. You're just using the variable to adjust. Finally, what we'll do is we're going to go into the system settings, and we're going to add hand and half to where we can see it. So this is attacks and conditions and stats. So this is attack modifiers and this is defense modifiers. Hand and half is going to be an attack modifier. So let's add it to the attack variables. And if you remember the slugified name, hand underscore and half. Save the changes, gonna have to reload. And then when we open her up again, and we look down there, we are going to see hand and half. There we go. So that's also how you display variables and well, not the modifiers. The modifiers will show up for anything that they're going to modify, unless they're always on, in which case they won't show up at all. But these will only show up if you use that system setting to put them into the place where you want to see them, unless, as we saw, you actually make the attack, either by doing that to bring it up, and then you see that it's set two-handed, or you use the macro. And if you use the macro, you must have a token selected. Brings that up, and this is all of the attacks that she has. There's a ranged magical longbow. We go back and say, nope, we wanted to do that blades short, and we're going to do it one-handed. Now let's do this one two-handed. Fire. So, because it had no modifier, you won't see it show up. All right. And there are some things that you will not see in the list at all, and that's the saves, the critical rolls. The various saves aren't on here. You have to use the macros for it to bring them up. Sorry, these saves, yes, you can do a willpower and a toughness save, but you can't do fumbles and criticals and things like that without using either a mechanism like this one to bring up the critical for the attack that was just made, or all of the critical rolls that are available on this sheet, or the saves, the failure rolls. So if you roll a melee fumble, and the modifier is based on what kind of weapon it was, short-edged, roll it, and we rolled an 82, which is here. So we get to choose. Character makes an assessment roll during the next assessment phase, which is basically a perception roll, and you get to choose one of these. Either take a superficial critical strike of the appropriate type, or drop the weapon. So if I pick this one, then it simply sends that information to the text, and you're going to have to make a, it's not going to automate that for you and choose it for you, because it doesn't know what type might have been applied. So you figure it out. And the same thing with these others. You get to choose which ones you want, send them to the chat, and then resolve them. What else do we have? That's failures, skills, perception. Where are you? In fact, perception happens often enough that you might want to make this one easily accessible, because that was a two-step process, right? So what you can do, nope, not the GM macros, the player macros. This, configurable token rolls. We'll drag one of those down there, and then we will edit that one, and we will call it perception, or assessment. Yeah, perception. Perception. So it tells you how you design the filter. It doesn't have a filter at the moment, it's all empty. But basically the category, if we look at skills, category is skill because it's a rollable skill, but the target is perception. And that should be enough to do it. And then I'm going to change this so that we go to core data, thumbnail view. Oh, it doesn't have any. Icons, I guess. Yeah, magic, perception. Let us use, which one of these isn't creepy? Ah, that looks good. Perception. Save that. And now it goes straight to the perception roll and brings that up. Because there's only one thing that matches it, so it brings it straight up instead of the list of things that match whatever criteria you put in. And then she rolls perception. Ooh, nice. So this is the action resolution table. That's the skill, which has a link so that it doesn't fail, but it's an empty one. You can always copy and paste from the book into there, editing it as you like. But the action resolution table tells you how you did. And 133 is a plain success. Okay, I think that's about it. Have a great night. Thanks for watching.